Welcome to Heroes of the Heart. I am delighted to be introducing our hero of the heart today, Emmy Rouseau. Let's meet Emmy. Emmy is a speaker, slam certified inspirational speaker, a growth guide, an activist, and a fitness instructor. She empowers change makers to go from fed up of feeling flat to full, on fire, and in flow, so that they can create the change in the world they were born to make. Welcome to Heroes of the Heart, Emmy. It's so good to have you here.
Thanks, Steve. It's so great to be here with you today.
And as I was sharing that bio, I was reflecting on the fact that we've done a couple of things already together. We kind of shared in the creation of each of our own speaker reels and what that looked like. So I was able to see you, at least virtually, on the Speaker Slam stage. And that was pretty exciting. And then yesterday, you invited me to get up early and to join you on Intensati. And please correct me if I'm mispronouncing that.
No, perfect. You did perfectly.
Which was quite an awakening. I wake up early pretty much I think almost without exception, I wake up early. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't getting up that was the challenge. It was getting up and then going and, as my family told me afterwards, slamming around and banging on the floor. And it was definitely not their normal routine for me to be doing that. So it was an interesting experience. But tell me about what that has been like. And tell me, especially, I appreciate what you shared about the idea of going from fed up of feeling flat to feeling full, on fire, and in flow. What is that? Mm-hmm. What does the flat look like for you or for the people that you serve? Let's start there.
Okay. So for me, flat was actually thinking I had everything under control. Really. I thought I had it in perfect balance and life was totally fine. I was busy as all get out. And yet I thought I had it all together. But I wasn't happy because I was just too busy, way too busy to be happy. There was no time for happy because I was just going. I was stuck on the hamster wheel because that's what it was. And that totally made me flat. Of course, I had not a lot of energy because I was always too busy. I didn't have a lot of joy in my life. And so I really literally was like flatlined kind of thing. And it wasn't until I was thrown off the hamster wheel in COVID that I realized there's a better way to do this. And I started on the journey. And I have found the same thing, especially after these 2 years of where I am. We've been virtually locked down for 2 years and we're just now getting out of it. And so many people are just feeling so confined and lonely and down because they're still grieving the loss of the life they had, or there's so many different things that they're grieving, and they just don't feel joyful anymore. They feel flat at best, or, worse than that, depressed, sad, grieving, angry, so many different on the lower vibrational side of the scale. And they don't want to feel like that. They are change makers in the world and they want to make a change. And so they keep giving, which just empties their own cup even more, making them feel even more flat. And they wonder, why am I feeling like this? Oh, because they're not serving themselves first. And so I really help people to realize that serving themselves first, in fact, until they overflow, not just their cup is full, but they overflow. That's what gives them the ability to continuously serve because they have an overflow. So that's how it changed for me. And that's how it's changing for others. And Intensati has become a huge part of that process, which I'm really, really glad to add to the toolbox.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you make that distinction because, watching you do Intensati yesterday, you especially in contrast what you just said about feeling flat and not having a lot of energy. You exhibited a lot of energy in doing that intensati yesterday.
It
So
has truly transformed my life. I mean, it's the last thing I've added. So luckily I built up things before that, but it has absolutely brought so physically I had the energy back before I started Intensati, or I wouldn't have trained to become a leader, but it has brought my mental game really super high again, which is fantastic.
And I love that about the Intensati program, is that it's not just about the physical, that there is more to it than that. And when I went and looked up, is it Patricia Moreno, who
That's right.
is the founder of that? And I just did a Google search, Patricia Moreno Intensati, and I brought up, fitness trainer brings in the spiritual, and was the most common headline for the articles that I was seeing. And I love that integration of, how do we fill ourselves up, not just physically or not just, whatever our favorite means of filling ourselves up, but how do we fill up our whole selves?
Exactly. I was just watching her today in a new series. Well, sorry, I was watching a recording of her. Very sadly, she passed away about 6 weeks ago, but she'll live on forever in her recording. She's got enough material recorded to go on for a long time, which is, thank God for that. And I was watching her and she was talking about how we have the power to choose, and how as we're doing this, we are literally using physiology to change our personality. And then you may have heard this before, but it was a good reminder to me that our personality creates our personal reality. I was like, oh wow. Yes. So she's like, just keep at it, do it. She says, I don't care if you're doing it at level 1 or level 10, whether you're doing it sitting in the chair or standing and jumping, just do what you can and it will change you. And it really, really does.
And I love that connection between, and I haven't heard that before, that your personality impacts your personal reality. That from much of my life, I've been very disconnected from my physical self, even though I've done lots of weightlifting, I've done lots of hiking, I've done lots of, physical activity type things. But it was at the same time, my body has often been the vehicle for my brain. It's kind of like the cart that we're pushing along in order to get to where we want to go. And I related more to my brain than to my heart or to my body. And I'm beginning to shift that as I allow myself to express myself more fully, to express my personality through more than just what I know and what I can recite.
So beautiful. I love that. And I love that, like the brain heart coherence, which is what I'm hearing you talking about. It's so important and not taught to us like anywhere when we were growing up, that's for sure. And so that is another cool thing that Intensati brings as well. Like as you said, it's the whole self. It has been the most magical fitness modality I have ever experienced because it is more comprehensive than any other. I've had some amazing yoga classes. I've had some beautiful meditations. Like I'm not saying I haven't had other wonderful experiences, but to combine the intensity of cardio with the affirmations and then the meditation at the end, it's magical. And it allows you to feel. I have experienced where I'm crying in an Intensati class, leading it, crying. And so many participants go in and they just have these breakdowns because they have breakthroughs of emotion that they weren't expecting. And it's beautiful if you allow it to be. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. And I think that's really key, allowing our emotions to be rather than trying to keep them, really cordoned off so that they don't bubble out. Which brings me back to your comment earlier that, we can't really give to others. Well, we can deplete ourselves until we're completely empty. But if we really want to be sustainable in the service that we give to other people, that we need to not only fill our cup, but that we need to fill our cup to overflowing so that we can give that surplus to other people.
Absolutely. I recently, so I'm a student of Lisa Nichols, and she talks about that, serving from your overflow. So it's not a new concept for me, but previously I had the analogy that everyone has heard of about put your own oxygen mask on first. And I had a friend come over and he's like, no, you know what? That's just crap. I could totally, if we were on an airplane and, the oxygen mask fell, I could help my kid beside me and then still get my own on. I said, okay. And what about your mom that's beside him? No, you're going to help your mom first too? Well, yeah. And I'm like, and then you're unconscious, like, or dead. You don't know. You think I can do it. And you keep helping someone else. And then you're unconscious or dead. You don't know when it's going to happen. You don't feel it till it's too late. Absolutely. But a friend of mine, Val Levine, gave this incredible analogy I hadn't heard until like a couple months ago when she told me about a champagne tower. And so, you have the one champagne glass on the top, then you have 3 and then 5 and however many levels you have. Right. And all you're doing is pouring the champagne into your glass. Like you are the top glass. You don't sit there and fill your glass and then take your glass and pour it into the next one. Because what are you going to do? You're going to get 1 full glass on the second level or a 3rd full glasses and nothing's happening down below. But if you keep pouring self-love, self-compassion, self-acceptance into you, and people say, oh, that's just selfish to put yourself first. Okay, so fine. If you stop at a certain point, maybe it's selfish, but if you keep pouring, you cannot help, but it overflows. You cannot help. So it just naturally radiates and goes down to the levels below and fills all of those levels if you just keep pouring into yourself. And that analogy, I was like, that's a keeper for sure.
That I get. Yes, that's awesome. And a couple of thoughts from that. One, when you were talking about feeling flat, I was imagining a can of Sprite that has, sat there for too long and it's just flat and it's, yuck. It goes from, being bubbly and effervescent to flat and yuck. So the sparkly, the champagne kind of echoes that. The other thing is that, I have been investing hours of each morning into self-care, and I've been doing that for years now, after many, many, many years of totally not doing that. I was always the last on the list to meet my needs, and it literally left me completely empty and bankrupt, emotionally and not quite financially, but pretty close. I mean, it cost me a ton of money to get to that state and to figure out how to recover from that state. And so now I regularly, consistently invest several hours into myself in the first thing in the morning, from meditation to yoga to walks to reading to, all kinds of things that I do. But I still always have that niggling voice going on in the back of my head saying, you need to be out there doing stuff for, whatever. You need to be getting these things done and taking care of other people and, being more visible and all this kind of stuff. And it's so easy it would be so easy to listen to that voice, and to discard my practices that help me to be in a better place. But in doing so, then I am my cup is no longer overflowing, and I'm actually not giving of myself. I'm going through motions that are devoid, kind of like that flat can of soda that, it's like, yuck, let's like be all in so that we can give something to other people and to ourselves that is, really delicious and satisfying.
I love that. That is a fantastic analogy. I love it.
So what has the transition been like for you, going from, you were a teacher, which can be a really demanding career, really demanding position, where your whole focus is on, I don't know, a classroom full of dozens of students and, meeting their needs and trying to control the pandemonium, I'm sure that sometimes ensues. So your attention is like totally out there. Is that accurate? Was that your experience to some extent?
Yes, at the beginning, for sure. Like towards the beginning of my career, that's how it was. And I was flat from overgiving with that. And then I realized after a few different years of having to take a leave because I was just too depleted that I couldn't do it like that anymore. So the last year I did teach, I went in with a solid, just like you, morning routine that set me up to be ready. I would protect my energy, ground and protect my energy before I went into the building, because during COVID, there was still a lot of negativity and toxicity milling around. And that was helpful. But I would say I was one of very few who were managing, because most teachers, and it's not just teachers, it's anybody who's a servant leader, whether you're a servant leader when you're working at McDonald's as the shift thing, or you are the CEO of a company and you run it as a servant leader. It doesn't matter what your position is, or you're a stay-at-home mom, like anybody who is serving others. We have this tendency, because that's what we were taught, especially if you come from, well, I think as far as any religion I know, and I'm certainly not an expert in all religions, but any religion I've ever heard of, it's, serve others, serve others, serve others, serve others. And somewhere in there, it's true. Yes, serve others. We are meant to serve others. But I was saying, where in the Bible does it say? I mean, I come from a Christian background. So where in the Bible does it say, but put yourself at the bottom of the pile? It doesn't say that anywhere, but we have somehow, been taught that, been ingrained that serving others means serving yourself last. No, put yourself at the front of the line, serve yourself first, and then you just have more to give. It's really, so I'm all about flipping that on its head. And so one of the things that caused me to leave teaching is that so many teachers were just in denial that they were even drowning. And I could see they were drowning. They were basically telling me they were drowning without telling me they were drowning. I couldn't. And the kids
drowning without any awareness that they're drowning.
Right. And even the way the system was, it doesn't serve the children best. It needs a whole overhaul. So I needed to get out to maintain my mental health and not let it get back into, because I do deal with high functioning depression and anxiety. And I knew this is not a mentally healthy space for me anymore. And I'm throwing out lifelines, but if you're not catching them, I can't, you can lead a horse to water, and so I had to get out to save me first. There you go, about serving yourself first. I had to, and really fill myself back up. And then from there, I'm actually able to go out, and I do serve teachers again now. And it's so fulfilling from the outside, being able to go in and say, hey, listen, you can do a better job as a teacher, and it's not going to take you more time and more effort. Actually, it'll take you less. And you'll have more energy, and you'll feel better, and you'll feel better about yourself. And the kids will, everything just gets better when you put yourself first, but we're not taught that. So that's why it's my mission to just flip that paradigm on its head.
Yes. One of the things you referred to is, so many faith-based practices, talk about serving other people. And not putting, but nowhere does it say put yourself last. I heard, the second great commandment is love your neighbor as yourself. And I've always heard the love your neighbor part of that, but I'd never heard the yourself part of that. So, it's not love yourself, neighbor, and then yourself. It's not love your neighbor and then, if you have time, love yourself. It's love your neighbor as yourself. So if you want to give all of yourself to other people, then you do what you need to do in order to be able to give all of yourself to other people without either one of you ending up bankrupt emotionally, spiritually, otherwise.
Exactly. Absolutely.
So, and I love that you're in this mission to, flip the paradigm that, and as we've talked about before, we're soul siblings on this journey of how do we how do we create an environment where people are taking care of themselves so that they can then take care of others around them, and that creates that ripple effect. If we want to see peace in the world, if we want to see peace in Ukraine, for example, of other places, how do we create peace where we are? How do we create peace within us so that peace ripples out and it impacts other people?
It does. And they really don't realize the power we each have within us to create that ripple effect. I heard an incredible man who actually made my first piece of love art. It's hanging on my other wall. He said once, our sole purpose is to heal ourselves. And in so doing, we up-level the consciousness of the planet. And that just hit home so deeply with me, because it's true. As we heal ourselves, and we've all heard the expression, hurt people, And this week I heard hurt people, and healed people, heal people. And I hadn't heard that part. And I was like, it's so true. So if we get better and we do better, it has a natural ripple effect. It absolutely does. And so it's so true. I also heard a funny story today. Somebody sent me a TikTok, and I was like, it said something about, man in LA sees animals killing each other. And I'm like, why am I getting this weird video? Anyways, and this guy's like, yeah, I spent a few days in the wild and I see these animals killing each other. And it occurred to me, they don't have a daily gratitude practice. That's the problem. And I died laughing because I'm all about joy, self-love, and gratitude. So I knew then why she sent it to me, but I thought funny. And yet, if we think about it with something as simple as or not simple, as serious as the Ukraine, but we bring that simple thing into it. If we all were more grateful for what we had, the world would be a different place. We just wouldn't have war. It sounds simple, but it's so true. And I was like, you're talking about animals. Let's just knock that over a bit.
Right. So I'm thinking about, sending all those who are in conflict there, a gratitude journal so that they can.
Telling you, it wouldn't hurt. That's for darn sure. Wouldn't hurt.
I just finished reading Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart, which she's actually written over a dozen books, which I wasn't aware of. I've read pretty much all of her books. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that really struck me about Atlas of the Heart was that she is still such a student of this work, that it is still from her a work in practice. And by helping her, and I believe, and I don't know anywhere that it says it specifically, she alludes to, things happening in her family, which helped get her on the path that she is now. But I imagine, that hurt that caused her to seek healing, and not only for herself, but for other people. And as she uses herself as kind of a test model for, how do we be more vulnerable? How do we create more belonging with other people? How do we create more authenticity with others? That in helping herself to heal, and as she shares that journey with other people, that, so many people are impacted by the ripples that she is creating. I mean, she's creating in a very good way, kind of a tsunami of a very good, kind, benevolent tsunami that does a lot of good rather than creates a lot of destruction. But
Absolutely.
How can each of us step into that same type of creation, of creating, ripple effects of love, of self-care, of compassion, or whatever our personal mission, and whatever our pain is, that fuels that purpose, so that not only are we benefited by the work that we do, but others are also benefited.
Well, I think you hit on a key word when you said create, because for me, a key step is to first realize that we do create our own reality, and that we have the power to change what is in our life if we're not happy with it, and to make it more positive by doing things like meditating, journaling, visualizing. Like visualizing is such a huge, huge tool. If you don't like your life the way it is, imagine it another way and keep imagining it that way until you feel like it's already that way. And you give gratitude that it's already that way. And then bing, it just becomes that way.
Absolutely.
And that is a super powerful way to do it for sure.
Definitely. And I'm an artist, I'm a photographer, an illustrator, all kinds of different visual. But one of the things that I'm learning as I own my role as a story architect is it is such a practice to be able to get really clear on what that vision is. To just as an architect creates a blueprint for the house that's going to be built or the building that's going to be built. That takes some effort in order to get clear as to what that looks like. Similarly, if we want to live into a richer life for ourselves, we want to live in our courageous castles, we need to design that castle so that it provides what we want, so that it is a reflection of who we are and how we want to be and Absolutely. Who we want to be with.
Yeah. And design is absolutely what it is. Dr. Joe Dispenza says that in his meditations, like it's our job to design. It's not our job to do the creation. It's our job to design. And if you were talking about blueprints, and if you think about an architect, it's not the architect's job to figure out how the lumber is going to go into the whatever and to actually get out the hammer and the nails and do it. Nah, somebody else does that. That's the construction worker's job, and the engineers and all of those people. That's their job. His job is to draw the blueprints. Our job is to draw the blueprints and then surrender it, which I think is the hardest and most powerful lesson I ever had, is to surrender. I was a control freak. I had to have my nails and everything, making sure that everything happened exactly like this. I know that you have some similar backgrounds too. And when I was just able, last year, my word was surrender. And every time I didn't know, I'd be like, giving it up to the higher power. I don't know how, but I trust it's going to happen. And it did. And it does every single time. It's when we clasp too hard onto the I have to know how and I have to do. No, we don't need to do. We need to be, and then take inspired action from what our being tells us. We don't need to worry about the doing.
You remind me, when I lived in San Francisco forever ago, my roommate was a builder, and his specific thing that he built was spiral staircases for these really amazing houses, and like in Monterey and Carmel and so forth. And he would frequently complain about working with the architects, because the architects would draw the plans for what they wanted, and they understood what it's supposed to look like and be like, but they weren't builders. And so, he'd have to take those plans and work with the architects in order to figure out, it doesn't actually work like this. Let's figure out, how do we actually make this work? And, the whole idea of surrender, if the architect was going to hold on tightly, no, I'm the architect, I've got the degree and the credentials and all that, I'm not going to listen to you, even though you're the one that's actually going to build this thing and have built, numerous similar structures, that just caused conflict. But if they would just surrender, and allow, this is a design, this is what I want to create, help me to build it, because I know that you are the expert in the field that can actually bring this vision to life, then it created such a different relationship.
Right, because they were co-creators, right? Then when you're co-creators, it works.
Yes, and I think that's such a powerful teaching for us, to be able to surrender and to have the vision, but not to be so locked into the vision that it creates conflict. To hold that vision loosely so that it can become what it has the potential of becoming, not just what we control it in being.
Absolutely. Being open to it manifesting in a different way than we expected, or from a different person, or a different place, or a different time. Like, really, for me, surrendering the how and the when, those are the keys. Every time I surrender the how and the when, it comes. When I hold on to, it has to happen now. Like, you saw me on the Speaker Slam Grand Slam stage in my reel. I didn't win a competition to get there, which is how you're supposed to get there. And how I thought, okay, I've competed in every competition, and October's the last chance. And my friend said, you want to be there? You will be there. We've declared it. So be it. So it is. And I was like, all right. And then I didn't place. And I was like, okay, what happened? Like, we did the thing, and like, I didn't get there. But then somebody else couldn't make it. They had some open spaces. So they invited some people that had shown that they'd done a good job in other, competitions, and, really been there, giving their full effort. And I was one of those people. And so I got there, not in the way I expected. If I had just been like, nope, I didn't get it, and then I was a big sucky face about it that I didn't get it in that last competition, might have been a different story.
Absolutely. Yeah. So by surrendering to, surrendering and allowing, surrendering what you expected and allowing something else to show up, you created an opportunity that, that probably was definitely not showing up in the way that you expected it.
Exactly.
And how often does that show up in our lives when we're just so stuck on, this is the way it's got to be, and I'm going to keep my nose to the grindstone, and and do everything, totally deplete myself because this is what I want.
And then we don't see the ways that it's coming in other ways. We don't see the gifts that are being presented, or the opportunities just coming by us like all the time. There's an abundance, but we're so like, meh. Okay, I'm laser focused right here. It's happening here. I'm watching here. I've got my eye on the pinpoint. It's here. It's here. It's out of your peripheral vision because you are too laser focused, right?
Holding on tight. It's like you're the little pebble is, right in front of you, and all you can see is a little pebble because you're just so focused on that. Whereas if you would allow yourself to have a wider vision, a more expansive vision, then you can see what else is available to you. And so it is a practice, and it's so challenging too for me to learn to surrender and to allow and to accept and to receive, has definitely been a journey. And honestly, to be completely frank, it's a journey that I'm still on. I struggle with receiving, and it's the way you responded to that. It sounds like I'm not the only one.
Oh no, I think that's the other thing is like in that whole serve others that we've been like, brainwashed to think like, and yes, again, I'm not saying don't serve others, but serve others at your own expense. Well, then you don't receive either. Like if you receive something, you should give it away again, because we shouldn't be receiving. We should just be giving all the time. What? Come on. Like, no, it is good for us to receive. It's the law of reciprocity, man. Give and receive, but we are not taught to receive either. I hope that I think I say sometimes that the younger generation is really selfish, but I will say, I think they're better receivers. So maybe, as they grow out of their, like this generation that's in their teens and early 20s, maybe as they grow out of their naturally selfish ways, like it's just the way their brain works right now. I pray that they will be more well-rounded and better receivers, better servers and receivers, because they're giving to themselves first. That's my hope.
One of my practices in my meditation is, and I've been doing this for years, where I, start at the base chakra, the root chakra, and go up to my crown chakra. Over the last, definitely this year, I'm not exactly sure when I started, but I started to go the other way as well. And I can do upwards with no problem, don't even think about it, just kind of be open to it. Going the other way, receiving, is is awkward for me right now.
Mhm. And
And
like accepting that and knowing that that's where you're at and loving yourself anyways, like that's the task, right? And it's a challenge. And so but you get up there and you do it every day and you keep practicing it. And eventually it's going to be like second nature too.
yeah, and I mean, just because things are awkward and uncomfortable right now doesn't mean that that's the way it is always going to be. You know, when we are, creating our blueprint, or handing the blueprint over to the master builder, or to whatever, there's going to be some discomfort there, some unease. I imagine getting up on the Grand Slam stage was both exciting, and I suspect, I know if it were me, that it would also be a little bit nerve-wracking. And being able to be in both places, holding both states at the same time in harmony with one another, is a real practice.
It is a real practice. And when you say like, I'm still on the journey, like we are on the journey until we die. Like it's never, I don't think anyone arrives because there's always somewhere else to grow and learn and keep improving. That's our purpose here, to heal. Right. And when we are fully healed, I think that's when we transition to whatever is on the other side.
Right. Yes. That's beautiful. Well, Emmy, thank you so much for opening your heart and sharing it with me and with our audience. If people wanted to connect with you, where would they go?
So on social media, I am at Transform with Emmy, whether that's IG, LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, always at Transform with Emmy as all one word, or my website is trinitytransformations.com. So either way, you can find me. I'm there, and I'd love to hear from you.
Excellent. And I will be sure to include that in the show notes and the descriptions and so forth. And again, thank you so much for sharing your heart with us and helping us to follow our heart to abundance.
Thank you. It's been a blessing. And I hope that the listeners like metaphors, because you can tell we're both kind of language geeks in a way, which I love, by the way. I say that with pride because we just had a ton of amazing metaphors today, which I loved.
Absolutely. Yes, beautiful. Thank you so much. And to our audience out there, be the bright light